And now let us deal with irony, the types of irony. The word irony has become one of the most complex, ambiguous, and fascinating terms in the whole arsenal of literary criticism and analysis, to say nothing of its popularity in day-to-day speech. Irony is often more emphatic than a point-blank statement of the truth. Irony is a stylistic device in which the contextual evaluative meaning of a word is directly opposite to its dictionary meaning. So, like many other stylistic devices, irony does not exist outside the context. That's certainly a good idea, could be taken as a compliment and as an insult. Does the interpretation depend on how it is said or what preceded it? The contextual factors that accompany the utterance of a statement play a major role in how that statement will be interpreted. Although these pragmatic factors can affect language interpretation in a variety of ways. Perhaps the most important role is to disambiguate potentially ambiguous statements. Consider the following utterance: "My mother is a mouse." Without any contextual cues, it would be impossible for a listener to arrive at the speaker's intended meaning. There are, for example, several possible metaphorical interpretations for this statement. It could be uttered, for example, by a son at a costume party to explain his parents' appearance. It could also be used to invoke the attributes we stereotypically apply to mice. That is, the speaker's mother is timid, shy, or extremely quiet. It is also possible, however, that the speaker intends to communicate that his mother is resolute, outgoing, and sociable. In other words, the speaker intends that utterance should be interpreted ironically. If the context supports this interpretation, for example, if the listener is observing the speaker's mother dancing on a table, then the statement will be understood in the way it was intended. If the context is ambiguous or impoverished, for example, the listener has never met the speaker's mother, then interpretation becomes problematic. Irony must not be confused with humor, although they have very much in common. The function of irony is not confined to producing a humorous effect. In a sentence like that, "How clever of you, my dear Miss Bingley, to be sure without knowing anything," the word clever conveys a sense opposite to its literal signification. Or consider some more examples of irony. "Oh, I love London society. I think it has immensely improved. It is entirely composed now of beautiful idiots and brilliant lunatics." Just what society should be. So the speaker does not really think that it is good for London society to consist of beautiful idiots and brilliant lunatics. The effect of irony lies in the striking disparity between what is said and what is meant. This is achieved through the intentional interplay of two meanings, which are in opposition to each other. The above examples show that irony is a mode of speech in which the opposite of what is said is meant. Thus, if we put it simply, irony is saying what is contrary to what is meant. It is a definition that is usually attributed to the 1st century Roman orator Quintilian. This definition is so simple that it covers everything from simple figures of speech to entire historical epochs. Irony can mean as little as saying, "Another day in paradise when the weather is appalling." It can also refer to the huge problems of postmodernity. In our very historical context is ironic because today nothing really means what it says. Modern theories of rhetoric distinguish between different types of irony. Verbal irony. When a speaker says one thing but means another, or when a literal meaning is contrary to its intended effect, we deal with verbal irony. A common example of this use of verbal irony is the scenario of a man staring out a window, looking at a miserably muddy, rainy day, and remarking, Lovely day for a stroll. This remark is ironic because it expresses the opposite of the circumstances. In Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Bennet refers to his son-in-law, my favorite son-in-law, though he intends to show that he strongly disapproves of him. William Shakespeare is well known for his use of verbal irony, sarcasm, which, as we shall see below, is a type of a verbal irony. In the play Julius Caesar, the character of Mark Antony gives a speech at the funeral of Caesar that begins, "Friends, countrymen, lend me your ears." In this speech, Mark Antony repeats the phrase honorable man several times, speaking of Brutus, whose actions, murdering Caesar, have been anything but honorable. This repetition has the effect of completely inverting its literal meaning. When Mark Antony says Brutus is an honorable man, he intends to show, of course, quite the contrary. At its simplest, verbal irony involves what one does not mean. It is defined as a mode of speech in which the meaning is contrary to the words. Such ironies are often hyperboles or lightheartedness. "I have not seen you for ages," says one person to another, when in fact they meet every day. Or "that's not bad," said of something which is very good or beautiful. Many distinguished writers, such as Sophocles, Plato, Chaucer, Shakespeare, Molière, Defoe, Swift, Fielding, Byron, Thackeray, Dickens, Thomas Hardy, Dostoevsky, Flaubert, Mark Twain, Henry James, Bernard Shaw, James Joyce, etc., employ irony, but it would be true to say that in many works by many of these authors, we find not so much direct or overt irony, but rather an ironic temporal tone, an ironic way of looking at things and feeling of them. And one of the types of verbal irony is regarded sarcasm, about which we're going to speak later.